Yesterday, my daughter emailed me again asking why I didn't do something useful with my time, like sitting around in the motorhome and drinking beers isn't a good thing. Talking about my doing something useful seems to be her favorite topic of conversation. She is only thinking of me, she said, and suggested I go down to the old folks center and hang out with the fellas. So I did, and when I got home, I decided to play a prank on her. I sent her an email saying that I had joined the Senior Parachute Club. She replied, "Are you nuts? You're 65 years old and now you're going to start jumping out of airplanes?" I told her that I even had a membership card and emailed a copy to her. Immediately, she telephoned me and yelled, "Good grief, Dad, where are your glasses? This is a membership to a prostitute club, not a parachute club." "Oh man, am I in trouble," I said. "I signed up for 5 jumps a week." The line went dead. Life as a senior citizen isn't getting any easier, but sometimes it can be fun. A 20-year-old boy was delivering papers to an apartment in a block of flats. While there, a stunning young woman came out of the flat next to the mailboxes wearing only a robe. The boy smiled at the young woman, and she started up a conversation with him. As they talked, her robe slipped open, and it was obvious that she had nothing else on. The poor kid broke into a sweat, trying to maintain eye contact. After a few minutes of flirting, she placed her hand on his arm and said, "Let's go to my apartment. I hear someone coming." He followed her into her apartment. She closed the door and leaned against it, allowing her robe to fall off completely. Now nude, she purred at him. "What would you say is my best feature?" Flustered and embarrassed, he finally squeaked, "It has to be your ears." Astounded and a little hurt, she asked, "My ears? Look at these breasts. They are a full 38 inches and 100% natural. I work out every day and my ass is firm and solid. I have a 28-inch waist. Look at my skin, not a blemish anywhere. How can you think that the best part of my body is my ears?" Clearing his throat, he stammered, "Outside, when you said you heard someone coming, that was me." Two lip-reading deaf guys walk into a pub. One turns to the other and says, in a mongy deaf voice, "You go find a seat. I'll get the drinks in." He walks up to the bar and says, "Bartender, could I please have 2 pints of lager?" "Certainly," replies the barman. "That'll be 10 pounds." "10 pounds?" gasps the deaf guy. "That's a bit steep." "Oh, we've got some music on tonight," explains the barman. "That includes your entry fee." The deaf guy starts doing the twist and asks, "Is it boogie woogie?" "No." The deaf guy does his best John Travolta impression and asks, "Is it disco?" "No." The deaf guy shrugs his shoulders. "Well, what is it then?" "Country and western." The deaf guy laughs, picks up his drinks, and brings them over to his friend. "How much were they?" asks his friend. 10 pounds. 10 pounds? Gasps the friend. "That's a bit steep." "Oh, they've got some music on tonight," explains the first deaf guy. "That includes our entry fee." The second deaf guy starts doing the twist and asks, "Is it boogie woogie?" "No." The second deaf guy does his best John Travolta impression and asks, "Is it disco?" "No." The second deaf guy shrugs his shoulders. "Well, what is it then?" The first deaf guy laughs. "Some Preston." After picking her son up from school one day, the mother asks him what he did at school. The kid replies, "I had sex with my teacher." She got so mad that when they got home, she ordered him to go straight to his room. When the father returned home that evening, the mother angrily told him the news of what their son had done. As the father heard the news, a huge grin spread across his face. He walked to his son's room and asked him what happened at school. The son told him, "I had sex with my teacher." The father tells the boy that he is so proud of him and he is going to reward him with the bike he had asked for. On the way to the store, the dad asked his son if he would like to ride his new bike home. His son responds, "No thanks, Dad, my backside still hurts." Paddy is sitting on a train across from a busty blonde wearing a tiny miniskirt. Despite his efforts, he's unable to stop staring at the top of her thighs. To his delight, he realizes she has gone without underwear. The blonde realizes he is staring and inquires, "Are you looking at my vagina?" "Yes, I'm sorry," Paddy replies and promises to avert his eyes. "It's quite all right," replies the woman. "It's very talented. Watch this. I'll make it blow a kiss to you." Sure enough, The blows him a kiss. Paddy, who is completely absorbed, inquires what else the wonder can do. I can also make it wink, says the woman. Paddy stares in amazement as the vagina winks at him. Come and sit next to me, suggests the woman, patting the seat. Paddy moves over, and she smiles and asks, would you like to stick a couple of fingers in? Stunned, Paddy replies, you're kidding. You mean it can whistle too? A Catholic priest, a Baptist preacher, and a rabbi were sitting around drinking coffee. Someone made the comment that preaching to people isn't really all that hard. A real challenge would be to preach to a bear. One thing led to another, and they decided that each would find a bear and attempt to convert it to their religion. 7 days later, they all came together to discuss their experiences. Father Flannery, who had his arm in a sling and had various bandages on his body and limbs, spoke first. Well, he said, I went into the woods to find a bear, and when I found him, I began to read to him from the catechism. Well, that bear came after me and began to slap me around. So I quickly grabbed my holy water, sprinkled him, and Holy Mary, Mother of God. He became as gentle as a lamb. Reverend Billy Bob the Baptist spoke next. He was in a wheelchair and had an IV drip. I went out and found myself a bear, and then I began to read to my bear from the Bible. But that bear came after me. We wrestled down one hill until we came to a creek, so I quickly dunked him and baptized his hairy soul. And just like you said, he became as gentle as a lamb. The priest and the reverend both looked down at the rabbi who was lying in a hospital bed. He was in a body cast and traction with IVs and monitors running in and out of him. The rabbi looked up and said, looking back on it, circumcision might not have been the best way to start. Reminds me of the old lady that went to the bank. After queuing for 10 minutes, she arrived at the window and asked to withdraw 10 pounds. The young clerk sighed and pointed to a sign that said that withdrawals at the counter should be for a minimum of 100 pounds. The old lady protested, saying she only needed 10 pounds. But the clerk said that for such a small amount, she would have to go to the cash machine outside. The old lady said that she wasn't comfortable using them, and if she couldn't withdraw 10 pounds, she would close her account and ask the clerk for the balance. He muttered under his breath about having to log into the computer to access her account, and when he had finally gathered the details, he informed the old lady that her balance was too large for him to deal with at the counter, and she would have to make an appointment to see the manager. The old lady said she needed the money today, so she asked what the maximum was that she could have immediately. The counter clerk told her the upper limit for on-demand withdrawal was 2,000 pounds. So the old lady asked for 2,000 pounds in 10 pounds notes. The clerk was really annoyed, as he didn't have that amount of money in his drawer, and now he had to summon the senior clerk to go with him to the vault to get the cash. After much toing and froing, the money was assembled, counted, checked, and paid over to the old lady. Through gritted teeth, the counter clerk asked if there would be anything else. Yes, said the old lady. I'd like to deposit 1,990 pounds. Swindon Mum's letter. Dear son, I'm writing this slowly because I know you can't read fast. We don't live where we did when you left. Your dad read in the paper that most accidents happen within 20 miles of home, so we moved. Won't be able to send you the address, as the last Swindon family that lived here took the numbers with them for their house so they wouldn't have to change their address. This place has a washing machine. The first day I put 4 shirts in it, pulled the chain, and haven't seen them since. It only rained twice this week. 3 days the first time and 4 days the second time. The coat you wanted me to send to you, Aunt Sue said it would be a little too heavy to send in the mail with those heavy buttons, so we cut them off and put them in the pockets. We got a bill from the funeral home, and it said, if we didn't make the final payment on Grandma's funeral bill, up she comes. About your sister, she had a baby this morning. I haven't found out whether if it is a boy or girl, so don't know if you are an aunt or uncle. Your Uncle John fell in the whiskey vat. Some men tried to get him out, but he fought them off playfully, so he drowned. We cremated him, and he burned for 3 days. 3 of your friends went off the bridge in a pickup. One was driving, and the other 2 were in the back. The driver got out. He rolled down the window and swam to safety. The other 2 drowned. They couldn't get the tailgate down. Not much more news this time. Nothing much happened. If you don't get this letter, please let me know and I will send another one. Love, Mum. A young couple moved into a new neighborhood. The next morning, while they are eating breakfast, the young woman sees her neighbor hanging the wash outside. "That laundry is not very clean," she said. "She doesn't know how to wash correctly. Perhaps she needs better laundry soap." Her husband looked on but remained silent. Every time her neighbor would hang her wash to dry, the young woman would make the same comments. About 1 month later, the woman was surprised to see a nice clean wash on the line and said to her husband, "Look, she has learned how to wash correctly. I wonder who taught her this." The husband said, "I got up early this morning and cleaned our windows." When I was about 9 years old, I accompanied my father to the funeral of a friend of his, someone who I didn't even know. When we got there, I stayed in a corner waiting for the time to pass. Then a man approached me and said, "Enjoy life, kid. Be happy because time flies." Then he passed his hand over my head and left. My father, before leaving, forced me to say goodbye to the dead person. When I looked in the coffin, I was horrified to see that the man in the coffin was the same man who had just spoken to me. I was so traumatized, I couldn't sleep properly. I had terrible nightmares. I was terrified of being alone. I couldn't sleep without a nightlight for many years. I saw many psychologists and endured much turmoil throughout my adolescent years. It got better as I aged, but I would still occasionally wake up screaming in fear. Years later, I discovered something incredible that changed my life. The dead bastard had a twin. A man asked a waiter to take a bottle of Merlot to an unusually attractive woman sitting alone at a table in a cozy little restaurant. So the waiter took the Merlot to the woman and said, "This is from the gentleman who is seated over there," and indicated the sender with a nod of his head. She stared at the wine coolly for a few seconds, not looking at the man, then decided to send a reply to him by a note. The waiter, who was lingering nearby for a response, took the note from her and conveyed it to the gentleman. The note read, "For me to accept this bottle, you need to have a Mercedes in your garage, $1 million in the bank, and 7 inches in your pants." After reading the note, the man decided to compose one of his own in return. He folded the note, handed it to the waiter, and instructed him to deliver it to the lady. It read, "Just to let you know, things aren't always what they appear to be. I have a Ferrari Maranello, a BMW Z8, a Mercedes CL600, and a Porsche Turbo in my several garages. I have beautiful homes in Aspen and Miami, as well as a 10,000-acre ranch in Louisiana. There is over $20 million in my bank account and portfolio. But not even for a woman as beautiful as you would I cut off 3 inches. Just send the bottle back." A man with a bald head and a wooden leg is invited to a ex-ma's fancy dress party. He doesn't know what to wear to hide his head and his wooden leg, so he writes to a fancy dress company to explain his problem. A few days later, he receives a parcel with a note. "Dear sir, please find enclosed a pirate's outfit. The spotted handkerchief will cover your bald head, and with your wooden leg, you will be just right as a pirate." The man is offended that the outfit emphasizes his disability, so he writes a letter of complaint. A week passes, and he receives another parcel and note. "Dear sir, sorry about the previous parcel. Please find enclosed a monk's habit. The long robe will cover your wooden leg, and with your bald head, you will really look the part." The man is incandescent with rage now because the company has gone from emphasizing his wooden leg to drawing attention to his bald head. So he writes a really strong letter of complaint. A few days later, he gets a very small parcel from the company with the accompanying letter. "Dear sir, please find enclosed a tin of golden syrup. We suggest you pour the tin of golden syrup over your bald head, let it harden, then stick your wooden leg up your ass and go as a toffee apple." "What is Irish Viagra?" she asked the doctor. "It's Viagra dissolved in a cup of coffee. He won't even taste it. Let me know how it goes," he said. She called the doctor the next day. "How did it go?" he asked. "Oh, faith, but Jesus and begorra doctor, it was horrid. Just terrible, I tell you. I'm beside myself." "Really? What in the world happened?" Well, I did as you advised. The viagra in his coffee took effect right almost immediately. He jumped straight up with a smile on his face, a twinkle in his eye, and his pants bulging fiercely. With one swoop of his arm, he sent the cups and saucers flying across the room. Then he ripped my clothes to tatters and passionately took me then and there on top of the table. 'Twas a nightmare, I tell you, an absolute nightmare. Why so terrible? Asked the doctor. Wasn't the sex good? Freaking Jesus, it was the best sex I've had in 25 years, but sure as I'm sitting here, doctor, I'll never be able to show my face in Starbucks again. A man who just died is delivered to a local mortuary and he's wearing an expensive, expertly tailored black suit. The mortician asks the deceased's wife how she would like the body dressed, pointing out that the man does look good in the black suit he is already wearing. The widow, however, says that she always thought her husband looked his best in blue and that she wants him in a blue suit. She gives the mortician a blank check and says, I don't care what it costs, but please have my husband in a blue suit for the viewing. The woman returns the next day, and to her delight, she finds her husband dressed in a gorgeous blue suit with a subtle chalk stripe. The suit fits him perfectly. She says to the mortician, whatever this cost, I'm very satisfied. You did an excellent job, and I'm very grateful. How much did you spend? To her astonishment, the mortician presents her with the blank, there's no charge. No, really, I must compensate you for the cost of that exquisite blue suit, she says. Honestly, ma'am, the mortician says, it cost nothing. You see, a deceased gentleman of about your husband's size was brought in shortly after you left yesterday, and he was wearing an attractive blue suit. I asked his wife if she minded him going to his grave wearing a black suit instead, and she said it made no difference as long as he looked nice. So I just switched the heads. A man goes to the doctor and says, Doc, you have to help me. One of my balls has turned blue. The doctor examines the man briefly and concludes the patient will die if he doesn't have his removed. The man is crestfallen and initially refuses to undergo the knife. If we don't operate, you will die, says the doctor, so reluctantly the patient agrees. 2 weeks after the operation, he's back. Doc, I don't know how to say this, but the other ball has turned blue too. Again, the doctor tells him if he wants to live, his other testicle will be cut off, and again the man is unwilling to go ahead. Do you want to die? The doctor asks, and so grudgingly the man agrees to have his other testicle removed. 2 weeks later, he's back again. Doc, I think something is very wrong with me. My is now completely blue. After a brief examination, the doc gives him the bad news. If he wants to live, his has to go. Of course, the patient does not want to hear it. How will I pee? He asks. We'll install a plastic pipe and there will be no problem. So the old John Thomas is removed. 2 more weeks elapse and the unfortunate man returns to the doctor's office. He is very angry. Doctor, the plastic pipe has turned blue. What? Says the doc. That's impossible. Let me examine you again. After a thorough and painstaking examination, the doctor returns to his desk, looks the man straight in the eye, and asks, Are your jeans color fast? Karen lost her husband almost 4 years ago, and her heart had been stuck in mourning ever since. Her daughter kept encouraging her to open her heart and give love another chance, but Karen just wasn't sure she was ready. After a lot of loving nudges, Karen finally gave in and told her family she was willing to dip her toe back into the dating world, though she had no idea where to start. Her daughter didn't miss a beat and said, Mom, I know just the man for you. And sure enough, sparks flew. After just 6 weeks of dinner dates, long talks, and plenty of laughs, her new gentleman invited her on a cozy weekend getaway to the Catskills. That first night, as they both got ready for bed, Karen slipped out of her clothes and stood there in nothing but a black bra and a pair of black lace panties. He, on the other hand, wore only his birthday suit. He couldn't help but ask, Why the black underwear? Karen gave him a sweet smile and replied, My heart's finally open, my arms are ready for hugs, but down there, I'm still in mourning. Safe to say, the poor guy got the message loud and clear. The very next night, the same scene unfolded. Karen, still in her black panties, and him in his birthday suit, but this time with a little twist. He was wearing a black condom. Surprised, Karen raised an eyebrow and asked, "What's with the black condom?" With a wink and a grin, he replied, "I just wanted to offer my deepest condolences." Ever since I was a child, I've always had a fear of someone under my bed at night. So I went to a shrink in search of a solution. "Just put yourself in my hands for a few months," said the shrink. "Come talk to me 3 times a week, and we should be able to get rid of those fears." "How much do you charge?" I asked. $80 per visit," replied the doctor. "I'll sleep on it," I said. 6 months later, the doctor met me on the street. "Why didn't you come to see me about those fears you were having?" he asked. "Well, $80 a visit 3 times a week is almost $1,000 a month, and my bartender cured me for $10. "Is that so?" the doctor said with a bit of an attitude. "And just how, may I ask, did a bartender cure you?" "He told me to cut the legs off the bed. Ain't nobody under there now." One day, a woman went to her local vet with her pet duck. Her duck wasn't moving. The vet saw her come in and took the duck and put it on the table, got out his stethoscope and listened to the duck's chest. He looked up at the lady, shook his head and said, "Your duck's dead." She said, "What do you mean my duck's dead? You didn't even do any extra tests. You didn't hook her to a machine. How do I know my duck's dead?" The vet couldn't believe it. He shook his head and walked out of the room. He came back in with a black Labrador retriever. The dog walked up to the table and sniffed the entire duck. He looked up at the vet and shook his head. The vet walked him out. He came back in with a cat. The cat jumped up on the table, sniffed the duck, looked up at the vet, shook his head and walked out of the room. The vet said to the woman, "Like I told you, your duck's dead. That'll be 200 pounds. She says, "What? 200 pounds just to tell me my duck's dead?" He said, "Well, it would have only been 20 pounds if you had listened to me the first time. But now it jumped up to 200 pounds because he had to do a lab report and a CAT scan." A sexually active woman tells her plastic surgeon that she wanted her vaginal lips reduced in size because they had become too loose and floppy. Out of embarrassment, she insisted that the surgery be kept a secret, and the surgeon agreed. Awakening from the anesthesia after the surgery, she found 3 roses carefully placed beside her on the bed. Outraged, she immediately calls in the doctor. "I thought I asked you not to tell anyone about my operation." The surgeon told her he had carried out her wish for confidentiality and that the first rose was from him. "I felt sad because you went through this all by yourself." "The second rose is from my nurse. She assisted me in the surgery and understood because she had the same procedure done some time ago." "And what about the third rose?" she asked. "That's from a man upstairs in the burns unit. He wanted to thank you for his new ears." A young Chinese couple gets married. She's a virgin and they're both waiters. Truth be told, he is a virgin too, but she doesn't know that. On their wedding night, she cowers naked under the sheets as her husband undresses in the darkness. He climbs into bed next to her and tries to be reassuring. "My darling," he whispers, "I know this you first time and you are frightened. I promise you, I give you anything you want. I do anything, just anything you want. You just ask. What you want," he says, trying to sound experienced and worldly, which he hopes will impress her. A thoughtful silence follows, and he waits patiently and eagerly for her request. She eventually shyly whispers back, "I want to try something I have heard about from other girls. Numa 69. More thoughtful silence, but this time from him. Eventually, in a puzzled tone, he asks her, "You want garlic chicken with cauliflower?" A man walks out to the street and catches a taxi just going by. He gets into the taxi and the cabbie says, "Wow, perfect timing. You're just like Frank." The passenger asks, "Who?" The cabbie explains, "Frank Feldman. He's a guy who did everything right all the time. Like when I came along just when you needed a cab, things happened like that to Frank Feldman every single time." The passenger remarked, "There are always a few clouds over everybody. Not Frank Feldman. He was a terrific athlete. He could have won the Grand Slam at tennis. He could golf with the pros. He sang like an opera baritone and danced like a Broadway star, and you should have heard him play the piano. He was an amazing guy." The passenger said, "Sounds like he was really something special." The cabbie replied, "There's more. He had a memory like a computer. He remembered everybody's birthday. He knew all about wine, which foods to order and which fork to eat them with. He could fix anything, not like me. I change a fuse and the whole street blacks out. But Frank Feldman could do everything right." The passenger was amazed. "Wow, what a guy." The cabbie continued. "He always knew the quickest way to go in traffic and avoid traffic jams. Not like me. I always seemed to get stuck in them. But Frank, he never made a mistake, and he really knew how to treat a woman and make her feel good. He would never answer her back, even if she was in the wrong, and his clothing was always immaculate, with his shoes highly polished, too. He was the perfect man. He never made a mistake. No one could ever measure up to Frank Feldman." Passenger: "How did you meet him?" Cabbie: "I never actually met Frank. He died and I married his wife." It was a practical session in the psychology class. The professor showed a large cage with a male rat in it. The rat was in the middle of the cage. Then the professor put a piece of cake on one side and put a female rat on the other side. The male rat ran towards the cake and ate it. Then the professor changed the cake and replaced it with some bread. The male rat again ran towards the bread. This experiment went on with the professor changing the food every time. And every time the male rat ran towards the food item and never towards the female rat. Professor asked the students, "This experiment shows that food is the greatest strength and attraction. Do you agree?" Then one of the students from the back rows said, "Sir, why don't you change the female rat? This one might be his wife." The professor stood straight up, his finger pointing towards the student, and said, "You just got an A." A young man called Chris from London wanted to buy a Christmas present for his new girlfriend. They hadn't been seeing each other for very long, and she lived in Scotland. Chris consulted with his sister and decided, after careful consideration, that a pair of good quality gloves would strike the right note, not too romantic and not too personal. Off he went with his sister to Harrods, and they selected a dainty pair of fur-lined, quality leather gloves. His sister bought a pair of sexy knickers for herself at the same time. Harrods had a free gift wrap offer, but the assistant mixed up the two items. The sister got the gloves, and Chris unknowingly got the knickers. Good old Chris sent off his gift-wrapped present in a parcel with the following letter. "Dear Maggie, I chose these because I've noticed that you are not wearing any when we go out in the evenings. If it had not been for my sister, I would have chosen the long ones with buttons. But she wears shorter ones, which are easier to remove. These are a very delicate shade, but the lady I bought them from showed me the pair she had been wearing for the past 3 weeks, and I hardly noticed any marks. I had her try yours on for me, and she looked really smart in them, even though they were a little bit tight on her. She also said that they rub against her ring, which helps keep it clean. In fact, she hasn't needed to wash it since she began wearing them. I wish I was there to put them on for you the first time, as no doubt many other hands will touch them before I have a chance to see you again. When you take them off, remember to blow into them a little bit because they will be naturally a little damp from wearing. Just imagine how many times my lips will kiss them during the coming year. I hope you will wear them for me on our next date. All my love. Chris P.S. My mom tells me that the latest style is to wear them folded down with a little bit of fur showing. Wife: "Honey, I need to get a bra." The husband sighed and said, "Leave it alone. The ones you have are so small to have a bra." The wife playfully replied, "Oh, really? Well, yesterday when you picked out new underwear for yourself, did I say anything to you?" A man returns from the doctor and tells his wife that the doctor has told him he has only 24 hours to live. Given this prognosis, the man asks his wife. Naturally, she agrees, and they make love. About 6 hours later, the husband goes to his wife and says, "Honey, you know I now have only 18 hours to live. Could we please do it one more time?" Of course, the wife agrees, and they do it again. Later, as the man gets into bed, he looks at his watch and realizes that he now has only 8 hours left. He touches his wife's shoulder and asks, "Honey, please, just one more time before bed." She says, "Of course, dear." And they make love for the 3rd time. After this session, the wife rolls over and falls asleep. The man, however worried about his impending death, tosses and turns until he's down to 4 more hours. He taps his wife, who rouses. Honey, I've only 4 more hours. Do you think we could... At this point, the wife sits up and says, Listen, I have to get up in the morning. You don't... I met an attractive 60-year-old woman at a bar last night. She was very sexy looking. I thought to myself, if she has a daughter, she wouldn't look too bad either. We had a few drinks together, and then she asked me if I'd ever had a thing called a sportsman's double. What's that? I asked. It's a mother and daughter threesome, she replied. I was really thinking this could be my lucky night, so we drank a little more. Then we went back to her place. When we got in the front door, I couldn't contain my excitement, and then she shouts upstairs, Mother, are you still awake?